Hello, welcome to Agile Encounters. Today's topic is objectives and key results in practice. Together with Scott Oliver, we will share with you our insights about using the OKR framework in practice. Let's take a look at the flow. We'll start with obviously what the OKR is about. Then the big question: why, where, when, in which cases should we use OKR at all? Then I think the most important part, we will share with you typical pitfalls related to OKR and framework, and we will conclude with a comparison of that framework with what you would see typically in business, so key performance indicators. I hope you are ready, and we are. Let's give it a try. First of all, OKR, as mentioned at the beginning, stands for Objective and Key Results, and it's a goal-setting system. Some of you might be familiar with the concept. Each OKR, each objective and key results, is actually a set of statements where the objective is the quantitative one. It is desired goal, what we want to achieve in the future as a company, as a project, product, a team. We're gonna talk about different levels shortly. And key results, typically 2, 3, 5, maximum 6, I'd say, are measurables. What you're gonna measure, so goals expressed as a set of measurements and that support the objective. That's in general. Not now going into details. Scott, I wonder, in your practice, where would you use OKR as a?
Yeah, hi Paweł. Where would I use OKRs as a framework? Everywhere, really. I've seen it used at organizational level, from at the top level right the way down to individual small teams that wanted to try and motivate themselves to start to deliver against obviously their objectives and use those key results to measure that progress. All over. I've seen it working across many organizations. I've also seen it not working across organizations because they've implemented it without actually understanding it. But yeah.
Is there any place you wouldn't use OKR, like, or place or context where you think the framework is harmful actually?
Yeah, I've seen it where the organization's like, yeah, we've got this new buzzword of OKR, we've got this new tool, and they are fantastic. We're gonna roll them out and basically cascade them and tell everybody that this is what you're doing. Remove the whole idea of empowerment, and then always bring it right down to individuals. So with performance management, I wouldn't encourage that at all, because it can help drive the wrong behaviors quite big time. People might have seen OKR used at performance management. It sounds fantastic when you think about it. It's a goal setting tool, but actually, depending on what an individual's performance sort of management objective should be, more personal development rather than organizational objectives. So yeah, probably not in performance management.
Got it. My experience is slightly partially similar, partially different. So first of all, where I see people implement it typically is a team level. And I'm not saying it's harmful. Absolutely, any kind of team can set their goals using the OKR framework. However, I think this is a lost opportunity. If you engage the inter-department, even the inter-company in OKR, it makes way more sense. It's way more applicable. There are two voices in my practice, partially competing, and I think Scott, you and me, we are actually in these two different camps. I personally wouldn't use OKR everywhere. Well, I would use it everywhere, but not for everything. And in my opinion, but that's perhaps my coaching preference when I work with teams, is I would use OKR to help teams or organizations, again, wherever we are in the structure, to achieve goals that are aspirational goals. I wouldn't set OKR for business as usual. If you are a sales department and what you do is sailing and you would do it anyway on daily basis, I wouldn't perhaps set an OKR for something that anyway you have to do. But if as a sales department you want to, I know, expand to a new market or use completely different technology, that sounds like audacious goal, worth achieving on top of business as usual. And here it's where I see OKR. I'm not sure what your thought about this one is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that business as usual could potentially be a measure, key results towards one of those bigger objectives, more motivational stuff. So I wouldn't say it wouldn't be, it's not important to make that visible and actually have measures against that business as usual using OKRs. But yeah, you could quite easily do that. And I have seen that. And that's where you touch on key performance indicators as well, which I think we might touch on later on. And yeah, in a measurement of a performance indicator that's possibly not doing very well could actually spark off, right, we need to improve this. Let's create some sort of a motivational objective to then, create some key results off the back of it. So it's quite an interesting one. Yeah. So I mean, it can be used everywhere. It's whether it should be. And I think the key thing for me is it's not just a tool, it's not a buzzword. You really got to embrace it. If a team does it and the organization is totally opposite, and they are literally cascading objectives and not necessarily goals, but like targets and deliverables, then it's going to be really difficult to actually implement. So you've got to have that alignment at all, top down, bottom left and right.
Yeah, I totally agree. I said at the beginning, OKR is a framework, so perhaps way more than just what you can see here. Objective and set of measurements, set of key results. About the framework part, the governance, perhaps in a moment, I think we owe everybody an example. So here it goes. And this is a very nice example of an OKR, a goal that is set based on that one. Scott, I know it's yours example. Would you be so kind to explain it to all of us what this one is about, how to read it?
So this is an example, not a real one. It's just really tongue-in-cheek, so please don't be offended by it. So let's pretend we have an organization and we want to be able to really try and improve and be able to respond and adapt to change. So we say, let's become an agile organization that can respond and adapt to change. So if you think about having that ability, that's going to be really useful going forward, especially for the survivability and sustainability of the actual organization, given how quickly the world moves. So usually what people would do in that scenario is like, right, let's go and do some loads of tasks. Let's just jump straight in and just go, right, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, whatever that might be. And there's probably hundreds and thousands of different things you could potentially do. But how would you know that that's going to help you become an organization that can respond and adapt to change? It's really just guesswork until you actually get some results. So we thought the idea is use some key results. So obviously we've got the objective there, and let's create some key results that actually we can measure. They are not tasks, they're not deliverables. That's one of the pitfalls, which we'll probably touch on soon, as people just jump straight into tasks at this point. And actually, if you think about what it takes to be an agile organization that can respond and adapt to change. So in the agile world, we talk about product and value delivery and service design, service delivery, not necessarily projects. Doesn't necessarily mean you can't work in that world, but let's just pretend hypothetical for this particular organization. They want to have less than 20% of projects funded by year. So we can actually adapt, we can respond to change, we can make sure our funding is like this month we need to spend X amount. It's totally different. Whereas if you planned all that money up front, you might not have the budget to do what you need to do and obviously adapt and respond to that change. So the idea is let's have 20% projects less than funded by year. So if we think about actually the next level down of that is there's probably a lot of tasks, a lot of things and actions that you can actually do, deliverables that might get us to the 20%, and that's trackable, that's measurable. We can actually measure that. We're at 50%, right? We need to get down to 20% by whatever date. That's really, really good. And the same applies for the rest of them. Obviously using objectives and key results as part of the metric, part of the key result at the bottom there. We actually have this implemented, and you might be able to track. We've got 22 products. We need to make sure we've got objectives and key results sort of aligned across the whole organization there. Zero Gantt charts exist. Please don't be offended by that one. It's just an idea that we can't plan too far ahead. We want to be making sure that whatever plans we do have, we are able to respond and be able to adapt and change. And normally, if you're not really being in Agile, your Gantt charts are normally set in stone, and the potential for scope changes and quality changes, etc., and time changes later on. So these are just really tongue-in-cheek examples of potential metrics that you could use to have measure your progress towards achieving that objective. There's probably many more. There's 5 there. I'm sure if we spend some time, we can create some better ones and create many more. The idea is to not have too many, so we don't lose our focus. The idea is this is their objective, and this is the measures that we are going to use potentially to help us achieve our objective.
Right, thank you very much, Scott. What I see from a high level, perhaps a quick, a bit simplistic, but a nice checklist. The objective has no numbers. It's literally the goal, the state somewhere in the future what we want to achieve. It's about where we want to be, as simple as that. Key results have numbers. It's not that any sentence with a number is a key result. They have to be measures. You have to be able to track them. But that's the first thing what I can see that makes a difference. Something that is not written here, and I don't know if you will agree with me or not, but I find it the most difficult part of OKR framework. The fact that we assume over here that the key results, so all the stuff, all the measurements here in yellow, if they are accomplished, if these tiny measurable goals are accomplished, the entire qualitative objective would be accomplished as well. And I think it's difficult to craft such a list of key results, that we are somehow sure that if we are done, the objective is done. Am I right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the key results might change. Objective might not be hit. It might take a lot longer. This might be something that lasts 5 or 6 years, even longer than that. So, ultimate objectives last a bit longer than that. 10-year objective to do this. We have various governments promising objectives over a longer period of time. These key results are there. Is our best guess to help us towards achieving that goal. There's probably many others, and I think it's just given us some focus and alignment around what it is that we want to focus on right now. There might be other measures that come up once those have been completed, once we've hit those, but the overall target, the overall objective, I mean, chances are you if you do these right and you do these collaboratively, you will achieve that qualitative objective, but sometimes you might need a few more key results. Yeah, it just depends on your time box and how big of an objective that is, how ambitious.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about typical pitfalls related to OKR. I thought maybe let's talk first of all about objectives themselves, so just the qualitative part. Scott, any bold example of a pitfall, something that is absolutely a no-go for objective?
Not measuring quality. It's literally task specific, very similar to what I would say for key results, which we'll touch on soon, is I want you to do this. This is what we want to achieve. This is what we want to roll out. This is the task we are going to do. So not actually, and it's the same as if we talk about sprint goals, etc., not having our qualitative sprint goals and being very focused on measure and targets. It's not really going to give you anything. The thing I would try and encourage people to do is ask the question, why is that important to you that you do that thing? And then that will help bring that up a level to a point where it is actually an objective. Actually, I want to do this, so it achieves this. Or will that achieve this part? Is that what we should be striving for? So yeah, probably not creating qualitative objectives.
I personally have troubles with pitfalls of objectives, because immediately in my mind, what is triggered is thinking not about bad objective of OKR framework, but in general not appropriate goal setting. And I think the example of a pitfall that resonates with me is something that happened to me 3 or 4 years ago during one of my customer engagement. I was having a conversation with the head of a pretty big department, and I think it was March, February, beginning of the year. And he proudly shared with me 3 goals, annual goals for the entire department. Not OKR framework at all, but 3 qualitative goals for the year. And only one of them was, in my opinion, outcome-based. For me, it's essential. On one side, it can be a task, but it has to be outcome based. And the first one that they were to achieve was, well, by the end of the year, we want to have a plan how to achieve something more serious in the following year. So actually, the goal for the year was to have a plan to achieve something outcome based. And when we pointed out that that's not outcome based, it was a big aha moment for that the director these days. So anything that you can say, in my opinion, that you can do in the wrong way for any kind of goal would be applicable for objective as well. How about the key results? Typical pitfalls related to this one.
The absolute main number one is people jumping straight from the objective into tasks. What do we need to do to achieve that? Which is common sense. If I ask you, Paweł, like, you know, if I say, right, I want to lose weight by whenever, the thing people will start doing, right, I need to go to the gym 3 times a week, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that. Actually, that might not get me where I want to be. I don't know whether that will. If I'm going to the gym 5 times a week, but I'm eating 10,000 calories a day, chances are I'm not going to be losing weight. And yeah, no, without going into health and nutrition on this call, but yeah, it's creating tasks, and it's so easy to jump into that creating tasks, because that is where people's comfort zone is. Coming up with ideas, coming up with insights on how we can improve things, creating actions, specific actions, fantastic, which is absolutely brilliant. And as a coach, I encourage people to do that. But if we just bring it back a bit and take a step back and say, if we were to do that task, will it achieve that objective? The chances are you don't really know that. So if we create some sort of key result around it and create some measurement that we can then create some tasks, then chances are you'll have a little bit more success. So yeah, creating tasks.
If you find out yourself in the position that key result looks like a task actually, what would be your piece of advice how to overcome that situation?
Yeah, so there's a little template, a little tool I've used for many years. It's not mine. I think I pitched it for somebody else many, many years ago. Obviously, these things have been around a while. If you were to be successful with X, whatever that task that you created. So if you were to be successful with implementing this thing, so I don't know, let's just say the task was, right, we need to send out 25 emails. That sounds measurable. I can say 25 emails, but actually that's more of a task. So let's send those 25 emails out, but is it going to give it the right result? No. What are you actually trying to achieve by doing that task? So if you were successful in sending those 25 emails out, what would you have more of? What would you have less of? And it might be more uplift in, I don't know, click-throughs on the website, or it might be increasing user engagement. It could be anything in that respect. Bring it up a level using that template. If you were successful with X, which is the task that you've created, what will it give you? Will you have more or less of something? Will it improve, increase, decrease something? And it's that thing at the end, that's something at the end that actually sounds like probably will be the key result. And the idea is just to keep trying and having to play around with it. You're never going to get this right from day one. Again, you can run 2-day workshops and training on this and still get it wrong. It's about practice makes permanent for this.
I tend to agree. When I think of typical pitfall of teams I supported on the level of key results, that would be definitely fixing on the number. If you have a number in a key result, it doesn't mean it is a key result or it's a good key result. One of the reasons why we have a key result as a measurement is to help us track it. So I tend to tell people avoid one-timers. So something that would be maybe not a simple task, but the state of the measurement is 0 or 1. We did it or we didn't do it, not yet at least. So one time or not. If this is a measurement, something that you can measure over time, it helps you track your progress. It helps you take a look at, make decisions about what we can do next. What would be our next tiny task in order to help us improve this particular result, a particular measurement. So I prefer leading indicators over here, not lagging ones, something that you can track. And that leads us to a slightly different topic that I initially thought we want to bring up here, but why not? OKR is a framework, right? So I have an objective set of measurements. Is there any governance process around it? Because I believe it's not that we just created OKR in January and we come back to it in December. right?
Yeah, you want to be, because it's a goal setting tool, isn't it? It's not something where you're setting it's a target, and this is where we confuse it with KPIs, where you have, right, we need to hit 100% of something, and if we want to hit 90% of something, it's classed as red or amber on the RAG status, red, green, red, amber, green status logs and whatever it's being tracked on, and that's seen as like not very good. However, if it's me, I want to lose weight and I've got to lose, I don't know, 10 stone. Let's just say that's not true, but yeah, close enough. And I lost 9 stone. That's pretty freaking fantastic. Like in the KPI world, I'll be red or an amber. I'm not great. I'm not on, actually that would be marked as bad. But actually treating it as a goal setting system, we're on track towards achieving that. But in order to be on track, we need to keep measuring and we need to keep evolving it. So actually, as we progress towards our objective, we might change our key results, or we might change the whole of the key result. It might just be the measurement, the quantitative part of that key result. So we got to make sure that we are constantly refining these. So on a regular basis, in our OKR workshop, one day sort of training thing, we go through a recommended cadence. There is a recommended cadence from us. For me, it's about finding your feet, starting really simple and just saying, right, how often do we need to keep on track of these? If you set them in January and you don't look at them again until the end of the year, you're probably not going to find them useful. You want to be able to, especially in that example, we want to be able to respond to change. So the idea, obviously, one of the major things about setting objectives, key results is really help transform things and have hit inspirational targets and objectives and outcomes. Yeah, you need to keep track of that stuff.
I think it was Paweł Coelho who said once that everybody wants to lose weight, like literally everybody. So let's come back to our example over here. When I look at the key results in here, I think the governance cadence is indeed up to this particular organization or a team, but based on if you are able to track your key results, you would end up with interesting conversations about tasks that are not part of key result. Imagine we are in the middle of the year, in the middle of the time frame that we set ourselves to achieve the objective, and the first 2 key results already done. We made it, but we see there was no progress with the remaining 3 ones. It's a hint for us as a team or as an organization where to invest our attention now. If we find out that we are okay with all 5, we are on track and we maybe hit them except for one, the last one, it's again a nice conversation that we can have with the team, what we can do to improve that measurement. We may find out that none of the key results is close to the target, but actually we think that we already achieved our objective. So is there still a need to track these measurements? Maybe something else is more important. So I see two cadences that the team needs to agree on. One would be review of the OKR. Should we leave it at something, remove a key result? And another one is more frequent cadence, but I would see even every week, maybe 2 weeks, in place to set very short-term tasks that will do something with key results, move us closer to the target. Fair enough. However, the OKR framework is not only about objectives and key results, it's actually way broader, especially if we take a look at the broader perspective. So the question that we would like to focus on right now is, what's the difference between KPI and OKR? And I have a picture that would support that statement. I think the biggest difference is alignment and engagement. How does it work in practice, Scott?
Oh, that's a big question, isn't it? How does it work in practice? It depends how good you are creating OKRs. You want to be creating these OKR collaboratively with each other. You might say organizations, right, we've got these objectives and we just roll that out and that's what we're doing for the rest of the year, and everyone gets given deliverables. In an ideal world, we would help create those together. Depending on obviously the size of the organization, we need to be realistic here. And depending on what level we get down, so you might have the ultimate OKR at the top objective, that leads down into, aligns into program level and then into team level. And as I mentioned before, probably not into individual level. It's not really useful, giving more damage. And the idea is that we create that alignment. We don't want to, traditionally, we cascade objectives. My line manager might have a set of objectives for the team, and then his line manager then has another set of objectives for multiple teams, etc. And they are literally just like, go and do that. Don't really talk to each other, don't really align at all. OKR flips that on its head, and what we want to do is everything we do from the bottom right the way to the top should have some sort of alignment. So even down to the very small task that the team say, like say the bottom left hand corner of that OKR little white box there says, right, I'm doing this little task. Which measure is that going to hit? Which key result is that going to hit? It's going to hit this key result, which will obviously help us towards achieving that measure, which will help us towards achieving that objective, which should then link to a higher objective, or maybe one on to the right hand side of it, or to the left hand side of it, whichever way it needs to scale. And it has to align to those as well. So it might actually, by achieving that objective, it might achieve some of the measurements or key results or objectives from other teams within the department or the program, or even right up to the top level. So the key really is to really make those align top down, bottom up, left and right, diagonal, as you can see by all of those arrows there. And the second word there is engagement. So doing these and creating these together. If you just literally get some manager somewhere and just cascade them out and say, right, you're doing that, are you really going to be bought into them? Objectives are supposed to be engaging and motivational. If you are part of the creation, even if it's just conversations where we generate some insights of what we could achieve and set that direction, chances are people are going to be a lot more engaged and a lot more bought into that whole outcome-based sort of goal-setting tool that we're using.
And I think that this is one of the most important aspects of the OKR framework. It's not that you can release it in any organization without some sort of preparation, because if I want my people to be engaged in creation of OKR, there has to be a sort of trust. Typically, KPIs are cascaded, as you said. So somewhere on in the board of members said, these are our annual goals, these are the KPIs, I cascade them down. Each department have to comply. And here I say, this is the destination now on the level of the company, now on the level of departments. You tell me what your OKR, in other words, what your goals would be to support what I set as a goal on the higher level. And the same on teams level. Teams, you decide what your OKR would be to support the OKR of the inter-department. How does it work in practice? Because that sounds to be very challenging to help people engage, right?
And I think there's another word to add to this mix, and that's empowerment to the teams. If people aren't empowered to create their own objectives because they're getting given deliverables, they're getting set targets, etc., for the year or even longer, it's going to be really difficult. This is why a lot of people are using objectives and key results and they're not really doing them very well, they're doing them quite badly, and then you end up hearing saying, oh, that doesn't work here. And it's the same for anything. You can literally replace OKR with any word, anything that we do from agility perspective. And if you do it badly and you're not really set up for success with that, and you're not really willing to give it a go and really change all of the structure around it, so HR, finances, all of that sort of stuff, and actually have some sort of business strategy to help deliver this, then it's going to be really difficult. And to try and do this bottom up is extremely difficult. You need that buy-in from all levels. But the word empowerment, I think, is a really interesting point, because it's what really I love this part of it is you might set the direction with the people, you create some measurements around that direction, and in the previous traditional planning sessions, a traditional way of doing planning is you create some tasks and you just go ahead and do that. The manager might do that, or team lead or something, or the organization might do that. But actually, OKR gives the power to the people and lets them use their skills and experience. So I was working in a previous organization and they created a deliverable. So, right, you need to do this. And actually, another team said, well, hang on a minute, let's hold on a minute. Let's speak to the 10 people that we've got really good experience here of many years of actually doing this work. Let's create an objective and set some direction, create some measurements on how to get on that will track against that outcome. and then see what they come up with in terms of that deliverable. The manager was like, no, this deliverable is, I know I'm right because I've been doing this a long time, but actually the team had a lot more counter argument, and then they started to come up with ideas which were actually a lot better and achieved a better outcome than what that one deliverable and what that manager said. So they actually empowered, so they used the OKR framework whilst they were aligned to the overall objective of the organization and the programs. They use that framework to really create engagement and empowerment of the people, which is one of my favorite things. But it's really difficult to get right because it takes time, and a lot of people need to get out of their own way to empower and allow the teams to really thrive.
So in conclusion, I'd say something that initially looked as a very simple framework, simple picture, like with all other frameworks that we have in the Agile world and nearby, is way more difficult and touches even the culture of the organization.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we are ready for questions. So if you have a question, please write it down. There's a Q&A mode turned on. We're going to give you a minute to type the questions. We'll be happy to give you the answer if we can.
Don't be afraid to ask a question. I see someone is typing.
Yeah, somebody is typing indeed. It might be a long question. Take your time, no worries.
Yeah. Long question.
We'll see.
Yeah, so
go ahead.
I was just going to say, just feel free to, if you've got any questions about objectives and key results, whether you've used them before, you haven't, you've got no experience, or you're really interested in using them, please use this time. We're here to sort of answer as best we can based on our experience and offer you some advice if we can, or point you in the right direction. If you haven't got any questions, that's not a problem. Thank you, gents. No questions from me. It was well explained.
Fair enough. Actually, if there are no questions from the audience, I will bring up a few. Recently, we delivered a few objectives and key results training sessions. 1 day long session where we go way more into details. And one of the questions was: is there any tool that we would recommend to craft and then track OKR? My immediate answer, Scott, was Mural, simply Mural board, but that would be me. Do you have any on your mind, Scott?
There's a few. I can't remember the names off the top of my head. If anyone's interested, please do put that in the chat, and I'll make sure we'll send out some ideas. But none I've used, to be fair. I've never used them. It's always been this stuff. Even now, when everyone's working remote, it's just some sort of physical or a virtual board where we can actually just brainstorm and share and make visible our objectives. And then, because in order to create the OKR framework, in order to create some objectives and key results, whether you've got one or many, you need collaboration. So you need that space. So whatever tool you end up with generally is like the final, like, right, we've got our objective, we've got our key results. So, and you got to revolve it, and you've got to show that progress. So something as simple as a whiteboard if you're in the office, or some post-it notes and some marker pens, or something like Mural. Yeah, just to keep going. I wouldn't start complicating it too much by introducing less fancy software. There is tools out there. I think ProdPad is the one I do like. ProdPad has a nice lean product roadmap in that, and they use objectives and keywords as far as I'm aware. Don't quote me on that one, but yeah, ProdPad, but yeah, just some sort of collaboration tool. Oh, we've got loads of questions now.
Yeah, we do. Let's start from the one that I find pretty straightforward. It's on screen right now. If an individual team member like to opt OKR for the team, do the team needs any approvals from higher management?
I would say it just depends on the organization. It depends on what your management.
Yeah, I think so.
it's like I said, this is not an easy thing to do. And one of the real challenges is, having the empowerment to do this. You talked about setting direction, creating some measures, and then empowering people to create their own deliverables and tasks and initiatives to try and achieve that objective. The power of the people. It's flipping that hierarchical stuff on its head. Not everybody likes that. A lot of management might say, we need to delegate and we need to come up with what the teams need to do. Actually, that doesn't always work in a lot of situations. So objectives and key results can help you get to that situation, like you're better, sort of more engaged, empowered teams. But yeah.
I'd say it's like with Scrum. If a team wants to do that and there's no policy forbidding them from doing it, why not? But at some point of time, we may realize it's not as helpful as it could be if they had a broader project around it. OKR is not as big as a Scrum, obviously. So if you have any, for instance, KPIs received as a part of cascading in the organization, and you want to craft OKR based on that, well, why not? Why not? It might be a very nice first step for the entire company, or at least department, to start adopting this method. Cool question. Now the big one, because it's very broad. How do you overcome resistance, concerns about the empowerment, fear of handing over the control? It's a big one. I think there's no one-fit-all answer, is there?
Yeah, it's similar to the last question, really. It depends on the context. Like, what's the root cause of that fear of handing over control? It's, we're talking about, we're going into other subjects as well here, not just object and key results. We're talking about leadership here and having that ability to relinquish that control to allow these people to do what they need to do. I think it's working out what the root cause is of that fear and trying to work with those people to try and change their behaviors, potentially how they are being held accountable. If they're being measured on certain way of doing things, chances are they might not change. It might be extremely difficult. Where's their fear coming from? What is the type of resistance? There's workshops and there's ways of facilitation techniques we can do to unpick that, and obviously coaching itself as well. And then it's just a case of working through them. It depends on the context of the organization. What I would encourage people to do is to give it a go. How do you know it's not going to work? Have you tried it before? Probably not. So why not experiment? What happens?
My point of view is slightly different to it. In typical cases, obviously, I believe that resistance is constructive. Typically, people resist from change because of a actually valid reason. So my first thought would be I would find what is the problem, what causes the resistance, or in general, if we take a step back, I would ask myself, why do we want to implement, in that case, OKR to the team, right? Because I wouldn't like a team or an organization to implement OKR because it's fancy or looks nice. Definitely want to solve a problem with OKR. And if there's a problem, an organization, a team understands there is a problem, typically it's way easier for them to accept the solution if OKR is the solution to the problem. Very often I see resistance because nobody asked about this dissatisfaction, or nobody said, okay, you might be satisfied with what we have, but our stakeholders aren't, and that's pretty important to all of us. If it's explained, if it's made bold, typically we overcome the resistance way faster. I'm of course skipping all the topics where resistance is unhealthy. So somebody says, I don't want to because I don't want, full stop, and that's it. But that's the other topic. Cool question. Thank you for that. There's one more related to examples. Do you have any examples of strong OKR? And how this then apply to individuals or small squad or teams?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, the current people I'm working with, current organization I'm working with, last year they had tried to implement some more objectives and key results to help manage a transformation and help set direction on that transformation. So they created 4 objectives. I've actually got them on a separate screen. One is create a stronger connection with the vision and the strategy, because if you think about the transformation, the whole organization, the one to improve in not necessarily Agile wasn't the answer, by the way. It was just generally improve how we work, how we deliver things, delivering value sooner rather than later, and learning from that value. So they needed people to understand the strategy and create a stronger connection towards it. So that was quite a motivational objective, quite qualitative. Another one was create the time and focus and how we can support the strategy. These are really context specific, so to anyone else it might sound a bit weird, but to them they really found that they could engage with that, because actually the main points were they didn't have enough time, they didn't really understand how they're going to get there. Another one was around leadership, another one was about empowering the teams to be the best they can be and do the right thing. It's all stuff that they know they would like to do. They then created some measures collectively with, like, this is at a large scale, so they had like 60 odd leaders in multiple workshops where they created key results that they could potentially use to measure, and then obviously they voted on which is the one most important that they think will help achieve these objectives, and then they created some tasks. So that's a couple examples. So the other one was build leadership team to support the strategy. What I might say is something that's a really strong objective for me, or an organization or team might be totally different to someone else. I would say they have to be qualitative and measuring the outcome. If you've got a number in there, that's all right, but try make sure it's like a date rather than a target in terms of like a performance indicator or something. As long as they're qualitative and quantitative key results, so they actually measure that, and the objective measures value. So that's what I would say.
We've got one more question here, and it's again on the individuals and teams level, but slightly different situation. Should be the individual OKRs be aligned with the team OKRs? I'm happy to start over here because I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. Typically, the goals in general are set somewhere there. I'm not talking about the board of members, but could be level of department or a team, and they are, as we know, they are not cascaded but aligned within the structures. They might be aligned with your individual goals expressed also OKR typically, but I can imagine a situation, something happened to me actually. I was using OKR years ago for me personally, to help me with my individual's actual professional growth, professional development, individual goals. I had my objectives, I had a set of key results. It was a tool, something between a stick and a carrot for myself to help me grow. And I was using it, that just for me. And I used to work these days for a company that started to roll out OKR as a system for goal setting. And half a year after I used OKR for myself, I received OKR, or we have this alignment exercise as a team and then individually, and then because now it was a system used for goal setting in the company. So I ended up with something that actually was aligned with my team and department, and still my individual two OKRs related to nobody but just me. It was pretty confusing. That's how I see it. If for historical reasons your individual OKR was first here. How do you read this question, Scott?
I was going to touch on it on the last question as well. I said earlier on in this call that I'm not encouraging people to use it as an individual if you're aligning yourselves to the team's objectives, because actually for me, if it's like a performance management thing or an individual's objectives, it's fine if you really want to do that and you can create your own. That's not a problem. If you can align them, fantastic. But I think it's not about a single individual or a person, with the emphasis on the word team there, and what is the objective their team is trying to do. So if you think of a sports team, like a football team, you have individual players. Yeah, they might have their own personal objectives in order to, like, I need to score some goals or save the penalties and stuff like that. But ultimately, the overall target of the goal of the team is to win matches and score goals as a whole, and get higher up the leagues and qualify for cups and things like that. That's the bigger picture. That's what I would focus on for when you're using a framework like this. It's probably a bit too advanced for personal stuff, depending on how I'm not saying it is or isn't. I suppose, like you said there, probably used it yourself. Give it a go and experiment with it. The thing I would avoid is performance management, because again, it should be team-based stuff rather than individuals. I really highly recommend you stick with personal development stuff for that. But give it a go if you really wanted to try and apply it to your own context. But yeah, it probably won't align as well as what you would think. I think because the team's objectives should be the key.
I also think that for personal purposes, we have other frameworks getting things done. For instance, personal Kanban, that would be my first place to go. OKR perhaps as a second instance. Fair enough. Thank you very much. We ran out of the questions, so I wonder if you wonder what's next. Here we go. In a month, middle of summer, August the 10th, we are meeting again. This time the topic will be how to become a product owner. A few Agile Encounters ago, we explored the topic of how to become an Agile coach, and we had a lot of questions, huge discussion that actually ended up weeks after the webinar was on. So we thought, why not to take a look at the same from the perspective of product ownership. This time it will be slightly different because a lot of Agile coaches that may have a lot of opinions about how to become or not to become a product owner, but we thought, how about asking a real product owner how to become a product owner? So we will have a special guest, true and real the product owner. If you are interested, you can scan the QR code over here or visit our YouTube channel or even our website mayrig.com, where in resources tab you will have access to all the data. August the 10th, how to become a product owner. From our side for today, that's it. Thank you very much for listening to us, and see you next time. Thank you.